welcome. Hello, everyone. This is a fantastic turnout. Oh, everybody come on and sit down. Or you can mill if you want, but it's time to start, so we're going to get going. This is the most exciting evening because we have a number of tremendous authors with us tonight who are in the Helicon West Anthology, a 10-year celebration of featured readers. Yeah, big time. So I want to talk just a little bit about the book. I don't know if everyone knows the whole story, but Chad Van Zanten and Tim Keller, who've been coming to Helicon West for a couple of eons, I've been there for about 14 eons, have proposed this book project. And the first thing we wanted to do is make it so that the authors who gave us their work for this anthology would actually get a little token payment. And so all the authors get a check. And the reason for that is that many people contributed to the Kickstarter that Chad started. And we thank you so much, all of you backers, for that contribution so that these wonderful authors could be paid a little bit for their work. The cover design was created by Maria Williams, who was one of my tutors. She still tutors online at the USU Writing Center from New York, where she's been doing an internship and is now looking for a job with an editor down there. And she also designed the book. The cover art is by Mallory Cully. This is the original painting up here on the wall. It's called The Carrier, and you can read in the introduction of the book how the painting, The Carrier, moves through this book, and how the book, all of the different contributions sort of move together with these amazing threads of topic and philosophy and family and just a wonderful sort of pulling together. When everyone contributed their work, I looked at it and just saw immediately that this was going to be an outstanding book. So we've got authors who are internationally renowned, and we have authors who are aspiring writers, students at USU, who may have their very first publication in this book. Every single one of these people, from that end to that end and all in between, are tremendous authors. They've all read at Helicon West. They've presented their work. Many of them have different open mic and featured readers series of their own. Many of them work in different presses and publications. It's a pretty phenomenal book. So I hope that you will buy the book. I've got a few tonight that we can sell, and then the book is also on Amazon. We hope we'll sell out tonight, and then we'll order a bunch more, and we'll start taking it around and showcasing it, because it's a pretty miraculous work, thanks to all of you. By the way, I'm Star Coolbrook. I'm the Logan City Poet Laureate and the organizer and co-founder of Helicon West. We have a panel tonight, and we have some readers who are going to share just a little bit of their work with you as we begin. I have Rob Carney. I have Susan Peshti-Strobel, who's kind of reticently sitting back there. I have Shane Griffiths, Darren Edwards. Michael McLean with the Utah Humanities is going to be our moderator for the panel. So these readers know which order they're reading in, and they're going to do that, and then they're going to sit down as each one finishes a short reading, and Michael's going to ask them some questions. And I want you all, as the audience, to contribute something. So shout out, join in the conversation. This is going to be a fun evening. I've given a few of the author copies to the authors with their checks already. Don't any of you leave. If you've contributed to the anthology, hang around. I'll be in the back. You can sneak back there after the readings if you want a little bit in the panel discussion, if you absolutely have to leave, but I don't recommend it. I don't recommend leaving. We may have to forego the open mic because this is going to be a pretty big night and we may not have time for open mic. We've got a lot of book signing to do. I have my signature ready for you. It's on a stamp. I signed it at the print shop so I can just go ka-ching because my hands are worn out now after writing all those checks for the authors. Woohoo! Okay, my lovely authors, go for it.
So give Star one more round of applause, because this is Star. So I have two pieces in the anthology. One of them is actually kind of more of a page piece, though they both hopefully work on the page. But as I'm kind of like the spoken word dude for the evening, I figured I'd do the more spoken word one. And it's weird because I did this one at the 2015 Nationals, but everything has to be under 3 minutes and 10 seconds. So my coach and myself sat down and cut it a lot. So it's weird to see the full version again because I haven't seen it in a long time. Anyways, this is called Privilege. Privilege. Noun. A special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group of people. As in, the last time I spoke at Utah State University, I had the privilege of not worrying that someone might attack me with assault rifles, multiple pistols, and a collection of pipe bombs which they have at their disposal. I have the privilege of living in a system that isn't pockmarked with loopholes legalizing prejudice against me, where I can walk away from a police officer, play my music loud, and eat Skittles without the fear of being fatally shot. I have the privilege of society understanding and accepting my sexuality and gender without question, of never having to hear my parents identify me by anything other than what I am, or fearing that my father may stab me to death because I'm trying to feel more comfortable in my own skin. Walking into a job interview, I have worried that they might not like my flip-flops and necktie combo, but never has the concern that my heritage could cost me the job or the amount of cleavage I show override my personal merit entered into the equation. You see, I am the privileged of the privileged. I'm not saying that I haven't earned what I have, but I am fortunate that this misconception is my biggest fear when society dissects my lineage, sexuality, and gender. You know, rather than lynch mobs, sexual harassment, and systematic discrimination. I am not responsible for the sins of my forefathers, and I am not accountable for the hate and prejudice slung about by other white men, but I do sit in a seat of privilege created by a history infused inseparably with these things. Privilege might be a noun, but it is not something I can own. No matter how hard I try, I will never be fully aware of the struggles the color of my skin and my possession of a penis exempt me from. And saying that I can or do is just a cover story for throwing in the towel, because their pain is too uncomfortable for me to think about. Thank God, privilege isn't just a noun. Privilege. Verb. Grant a privilege or privileges to. Because I live in a society where, however unjustly, my voice is often heard above the cries of others, because I am assured more safety, a bigger platform, and a fraction of the roadblocks so many others face. May God grant me the intelligence to turn my privileges into action, to work toward a day when women like Anita Sarkeesian can speak their mind without a shitstorm of death threats, where names like Walter Scott, Jordan Davis, and Trayvon Martin are attached to their accomplishments, not obituaries. Yeah. Where the life stories of Layla Alcorn and Bree Golick don't end in tragedy. but go on in a beautiful exploration of self. I'm blessed that I can do this while avoiding some fucked up savior complex, because they don't need my white male greatness to pull them up. What we need is for all of us to tear this system down.
I have to follow that up. Let's see. I'm reading a very small piece of a larger story that's in the anthology, and so I'll just give you a little bit of setup, and I'm going to leave you sort of straight in the middle of it, and so apologies for that. This is a story about, I'll back up. This story was inspired when I was reading Cheryl Strayed's Wild. Have you read that book? It's about a woman who was hiking the Pacific Crest Trail by herself. And as she's prepping for it, she's packing this enormous backpack, which will come to be named Monster, with way too much stuff. And one of the things that she buys for this backpack is a rape whistle. And that image, for some reason, stuck in my mind. And I kept thinking about rape whistles and who would hear this whistle if she were to get attacked on this trail so far from anybody who was out there. And I really started thinking about the wilderness and women and vulnerability, and specifically that image. So this is a story about a logger who's out in the woods one day, and he hears a whistle, and he stumbles up and interrupts a rape in progress. Dan turned to the woman on the road. She just sat there in the ferns, staring at Dan and ignoring the dirt that clung to her running shorts, the hem now torn and hanging open like a mouth. Her eyes on him were deeply unsettling, dry and direct, her lips pressed thin. She didn't really have the legs for shorts anymore. They were toned enough, he guessed, but too pale, too splotchy. They had that kind of cottage cheese look to them that women's thighs get with age. Her hair was frizzy, but she'd pulled it back into a ponytail so that now it looked as if she had a mushroom cloud sprouting from her head. The woman was his own age, which made him pause. Why had that handsome young buck wanted to force himself on her? She had the flattest chest he'd ever seen on a woman, flat as a 10-year-old boy, and her shirt had a spotted owl on the front. She was one of them then, a hippie. One of those women who came out to the woods to run because they thought it was peaceful. Well, he thought, he guessed she'd learned otherwise today. He tried to imagine Marie out here on this road running, but he couldn't. Marie had put on 60 pounds at least since she took that job working dispatch. Still, the thought of Marie out here, of someone like Marie out here getting attacked by some pervert. Dan leaned over the woman, but she flinched away from him. "Your whistle," he said, wishing his voice was gentler than it was. "I was just getting your whistle for you. Here it is." He lifted her hand from the dirt and laid the bit of orange plastic in her palm. Her hand was cold, though her chest was hot with sweat. Still, that damp, small hand felt electric in his own. He found himself buzzing with its energy. The hands he touched to hers were covered with poison oak. She'd have it on her own hands now. He wasn't thinking right. He should never have touched her. Why was he so suddenly turned on? By the way it felt to have her eyes on him? By the way her hand felt in his? She wasn't his type. Spotted owl business aside, he was a breast man, always had been. Marie's generous chest had been the reason he'd first talked to her back in high school. And even during these past 2 years, as he failed her over and over, even when she started working again, getting that job, a job she claimed to like but obviously made her tired, Marie still offered her beautiful breasts to him each night, just the same as they had when they were 16. And they parked her father's Buick on some long-forgotten logging road. The woman unbelted a small canvas bag from her hip. She looked within, sighed, and poured its contents onto the ground in front of her. Wild mushrooms, only there was no eating them now, crushed as they were. She was shaking, and he saw the start of tears in her eyes, though she wouldn't acknowledge them by even so much as dashing them away with the back of her hand. "Shit," was all she said. "Hey," he said, "hey now." He knelt before her, reaching again for her hands as if his touch might be comforting. A tick crawled across her breastbone, moving upward toward her hair. He watched it move over her throat, its legs tickling her skin. Why didn't she feel that? Why didn't she flick it into the woods? This tiny little thing on her jugular, traveling to her jaw. He could press his lips there and suck it away. He would feel for it with his tongue, find the little smooth button of it, crush it with his teeth, spit it out, or hell, swallow it, because once he put his lips there against her throat, he wasn't sure he could remove them. He'd be like a tick himself. Pull him, and he might snap off at the neck, leaving his head attached to her, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, which it was, he supposed, since ticks were about as natural as you could get. She pulled herself up, and he realized he'd been staring far too long. "I'm sorry," Dan said, "there's a tick." He gestured to his own throat rather than hers. He touched the corresponding spot and found his pulse hot and racing under his fingertips. He'd expected her to react as Marie would have, yelling, "Oh God," and grabbing her neck. She'd find the tick and throw it from her, washing her hands long after it was gone, one wringing the other. This woman let the tick crawl over the backs of her fingers for a moment, watching it closely. "Look at its shell," she said. "Its pattern of speckles, beautiful." Dan stared. "You know those things carry disease." "There are worse diseases than anything this guy carries." "You ever seen anyone with Lyme's disease?" The woman turned her eyes on Dan. "Mr. Expert, huh? This is too big to be a deer tick, and I'd be very surprised if it bit my fingers." She paused, flicking it off into the woods. They like to crawl higher, get into the hair. Dan stood there, trying to understand this strange woman. If Marie were out here, if some punk kid followed her out here, but then Marie wouldn't be out here. It was dangerous. "You shouldn't be in the woods alone," Dan said. "If I'd been alone," she replied, "there wouldn't have been any danger."
Hi, my name's Rob. I'm going to do a piece that's in the anthology called 7 Circles in the Book of Sharks. The cousin of a shark is a manta ray, and the cousin of a manta ray a hawk, and the cousin of a hawk is lightning, the ocean reborn, returned skyward and alive with storm. And the cousin of storms is a waterfall, and the cousin of falling is the wind, and the cousin of wind is erosion, leaving rock, the bones of the mountains scattered. And the cousin of the mountains is a row of teeth, and another behind. And those teeth are the cousin of the manta ray, lightning, the wind. In a story seldom remembered, sharks were ghosts guarding the afterlife, since their rendered bodies had no skeletons, just teeth. The shock of that discovery must have added new verses to songs and widened the net of old omens, but nobody knows. Those details aren't the details that lasted. Only this: the dead step out of their bodies, walk down to the sea, swim out to the horizon. For some, the journey is easy. A day, a night, a warm current there to guide them. For others, the journey goes on and on. If they killed a bear or left a wolf's mate howling, and the water is cold as a shark's eyes. And then they see the fins. Under the first full moon of summer, they would carry bowls of water. the light reflected on the surface, making more a procession of moons moving forward. In the center of town was a rowboat being filled one bowl at a time. And this was the boat of anyone lost at sea, gone without a burial. Those in mourning floated candles and petals. There may have been music on flute or strings, but we don't know. It's a ritual fallen away, and all we have left are the wives' tales. They say they're empty bowls filled with quieter sorrow and with memories of the dead to carry home. They say the boat would be gone by sunrise, just the anchor there, still as a headstone by others from the years before. We have one such anchor on display in the museum. Arrangements of fish hooks, even spears tipped long ago with shark's teeth, and figure that's that. Think the past fits into our pockets. We wander about and buy a barcode souvenir. But the past is more like the wind behind us, and the present more like a ship. And the only pockets on a ship that matter are the sails. And they're wrong about the skeletons, apart from the age of the bones. Bones buried deep, but seated upright together, all of them facing the sea. So the ancient world believed in guardian spirits watching over the living, and a salmon was placed with the deceased to keep the spirit fed. Fish bones wrapped in deerskin were discovered in every grave, a plausible explanation, but it's wrong. The living were playing the part of angels, guiding the dead to the edge of heaven, seating them upright to find forever in the waves. But what about the salmon? Well, that's counterclockwise too. The salmon were meant as an offering, a present for the sharks, a thank you for taking our spirits into their home. Spearing a shark means 7 days of work, that long to do the rendering, and all you get is a set of jaws and teeth, some fragment to hang in a window or look at over the fireplace instead of at the fire. I've heard there are monks somewhere using human skulls as paperweights. Not to keep old scrolls from rolling up, or pages in place while they bind them, but to bear in mind we aren't the measure of creation, just a part. The edge of the sea is a teacher. So many bones. All the shells and the sand dollars, all the barnacles encrusted on the pier, even wood. It used to stand upright in forests. Even ash left behind in our fire pits, dug to keep warm, to boil water and empty our crab pots. Even steam rising up like the spirit of rivers, joining clouds that drift above our graveyards, and higher still, the moon keeps sailing through its phases, all of them the color of bone. Thanks.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming. I'm Susan Pesti-Strobel, so formerly Nikos, if you remember that. How many of us were here 10 years ago with Helicon West? Yay! Look at the old people. Them. Yes, awesome. I would like to start with a shout out because I have to get the jitters out. So shout out for everybody who has ever read at Helicon West. Woohoo! Thank you. And then, of course, Star and Mitch. Star in many ways. Okay, so I would like to start with a poem that was not written by me. but by my son, one of them. And but I'm in the poem. I'm the mother, just as a reminder. I know. Potato soup. I set up my computer and webcam in the kitchen so I can ask my mother's and aunt's advice as I cook soup for the first time alone. My mother is in Utah. My aunt is in Hungary. I show my onions to my mother with the webcam. Cut them smaller, she advises. You only need a taste. I chop potatoes as the onions fry in my pan. When I say I have no paprika to add to the broth, they argue whether it can be called potato soup. My mother says it will be white potato soup. My aunt says potato soup must be red. When I add sliced peppers, I ask many times if I should put the water in now, but they both say to wait until I add the potatoes. I add Polish sausage because I can't find Hungarian, and I cook it so long the potatoes fell apart. You've made stew, my mother says when I hold up the whole pot to the camera. They laugh and say I must get married soon. I turn off the computer and eat alone. That's Daniel. Yeah, he used to read here as well. All right. So for continuing with the mother theme, this some parts of the story here might sound familiar to younger people, but then there is a parent who has just as good a time with this as anyone else. Raising him, best advice. If he is hungry, he will eat. If he is tired, he will sleep. If your milk dries up, drink this tea 3 times a day. If he has fever, make a poultice, bathe him in cooling water, make him drink this. If he coughs all night, rub mustard, Lord lemon on his scarred chest. If he cries, never ever pick him up. If he falls into a coma, sing to him. If he recovers from surgery behind schedule, never ever stay with him 24/7. If he learns to walk 3 days before his 2nd birthday, will a girlfriend care? Raise him as if nothing's wrong with him. If in PE that kid kicks him in the forehead, which swells up like a beehive, never ever sue the school. If he can't keep up with his brothers in math, English, science, just push him harder. Do not hold him back a year. Do not hurt his father's ego. If he doesn't learn to drive by 26, but moves back within you, if he growls, no can do, no can do. If he quits job after job after job. If he cuts 1 inch apart. If he skips therapy, you'll know what to do. Do I have time for 2 more? 2 more? 1 more?
You just go ahead and do it.
I'll just go ahead. The head has spoken. Okay, all right. How many of us are familiar with Billy Collins's poetry? Yay, everybody's hand is up. Okay, awesome. All right, meaning that I'm writing a letter to him because he wrote a letter to Emily Dickinson, taking off her clothes. And I don't know if you guys know that poem. So I thought, what if he did the same, or I did it to him? Or he does it to himself, you'll see. Okay. It's called In Bed with Billy Collins. I'm going to raise my finger when I'm actually directly quoting from one of his poems. For a week now, each night, he takes off another piece of clothing. I know he does that from time to time. Peels off a frayed sweater, unbuttons all 7 4-holed shiny white buttons of a gossamer Oxford shirt, though maybe the top 3 were already left undone, to cleave a clever view of a mussed garden of sweaty chest hair. Then, dimming corduroy pants slip down into a breathless accordion to halo veils and peaks of ankles, so fragile that my hands yearn to cup them like a child's frosty face after a lost snowball fight. You will want to know that all this time he's standing there next to me, in my bed, looking a little puzzled if he has... Now, Try that again. A little puzzled, Effie. And this is so good, you guys. You don't want to miss it, this one. All right. Okay, I'm going to just read this whole stanza again. You will want to know that all this time he is standing there next to me, I in my bed, looking a little puzzled as if he has forgotten my name and many others possibly worth forgetting. One look stops my yearning hand from touching him or his now puddling clothes, and he trots off to take a bath in a claw-footed bathtub while I turn the page. Then he puts on a robe, his skin still steamy and fragrant underneath, maybe lavender or magnolia, his cheeks open like pages, calls me you as we sit opposite at an orphan kitchen table, downing hot leafy tea on Sunday morning before this something between us ignites the F pages of his shelved encyclopedia. He writes my name into a faux parodel, nothing personal it seems, but at least he does not remember me as a hippo, though he could have, and he could, any minute now, unfasten that threadbare bathrobe, and maybe one of us will, right after picnic lightning, lose that first, oh my God. Later, I wrote in a notebook, it was like riding a 1941 Nash ambassador, but that's all I can tell. All right, and the last one, it's a salute to Kim Adonisio. She has a similar poem, but then, of course, it seemed like you have to take it over to Utah. So this one is called Dressed to Kill in Small Town, Utah. It's on page 118. If you have already bought the book, which you have done already, right? You can read along with me and just read it out loud. Some of it might work for more than one person. I'm putting on that little black dress, walk down Main Street, every hairline wrinkle showing in my cleavage, endless like time. That little dress, sleeveless, backless, tight like armor. Oh, how the ruffles skirt and veil my weathered knees, and yes, every strand of hair shaved to a stump, a showstopper for sure. Just look at the green wave from north to south. No one, no crossing can stop me. Blank greeting cards sigh and wave from the Hallmark shop window, the ones never sent to me, and I don't care. By the sports goods store, prime bicycles sparkle in a chorus line, front wheels turn to follow my little black march, and I keep walking, even if this is my last stretch under stealthy looks, shot from idle eyes hooded in family vans, eyes my spike heels might just gouge out, eyes starved for steamy sidewalk dreams, modest shorts aching to drop behind the butcher shop where I order tongue and tenderloin. And how that blue-eyed butcher longs to wrap me in crackling sheets of paper, hairs standing to attention on his beefy forearm. I might just die and be buried in this little black dress, and the band will play on, and we will all paddle to this other world across a sizzling Styx of hot coffee, black, no cream, no sugar. Thank you so much.